Hello, everybody. It's Deb here. Welcome to the Deb Talks this week. We have a very beautiful, fabulous guest today. Her name is Allie Moscarelli. And I met Allie many years ago through yoga. And I've been following her as well over the years and seeing how beautifully she's transformed her life and just through her different things that she's been doing. And I wanted to have her as a guest on my podcast because I believe that she has lots and lots of nuggets that she can share with us. And I was particularly interested in talking to her about her movement as medicine that she's doing right now. So without further ado, Allie, welcome, and please introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and how you got to be this movement as medicine woman now.
Hi. Okay, great. It's so nice to be here. First of all, thanks for having me on your show.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be here. Okay, where should I start? Where should I start?
Start anywhere you'd like. Just maybe tell people a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and what your journey's been so far, and what has led you to offer this movement as medicine. Because that's the thing that I thought is so brilliant, and also coming from our yoga background, and just not from yoga, just even if people are walking, but movement is so important. And I loved what you sharing with others, movement as medicine, and that's really what I wanted to talk about. But it's always nice for people to get to know you a little bit, to see what made you take this path, right?
Okay, yeah, of course. So yeah, my name is Allie. I have been a yoga teacher for 14 years now, 13, 14 years. And yeah, I've been doing all of this for about 16 years. My main thing is the hatha yoga, and I've had a very long-standing hatha yoga practice. And I practice Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism as well, which has been really a founding philosophy upon which I've been able to base my life, really. Like it's been a really solid strategy for me as I learn to live a creative life, like a creative life. And I think that that's really pertinent. I think that's really relevant. The idea of being able to fuse your life with living creatively, because we're little ecosystems, right?
Yes, we are the creators. We co-create with the universe.
Yeah. And so yeah, I think that's been really huge, really important for me. My physical yoga practice has been crucial. I started doing yoga when I was living in LA. I lived in Los Angeles right after I graduated from college. My mother had been pushing for law school, and really there were other things calling me. And so I moved out to Los Angeles to pursue the industry. Really, I wanted to act.
You wanted to be an actress.
I did. I had a lot of I had a background in theater, and I was in a lot of shows in college, and I was a speech and debate person in college, and so I was able to express myself through that. Yeah.
Well, that must have been a nice springboard for you as a yoga teacher, though, because as a yoga teacher, you need all those skills to be able to talk, to be able to direct, to be able to, help
100%.
people. Yeah. So that
100%.
must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. You're right. I was very, very lucky. Speech and debate was a huge part of my life in college, and I always felt really fortunate for that, because my mother always said, if you can speak and you can write, you can pretty much do anything in the world that you want to do. And so I think that those were skills worth cultivating, and I'm really fortunate for being able to spend so much time doing that, because you're right, like I never in a million years realized that I would end up in the in the profession that I'm in, doing what I'm doing, but
Facilitating yoga classes.
100%, but it's so applicable, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So when I was a young woman, I grew up in a military family, and I've always been I'm a sensitive creature. I'm very sensitive and artistic out of the gate, and highly emotional. And so
Mhm.
growing up in a military family was pretty tough for me, because everything's very, there's a lot of structure and rigidity, masculine love, like masculine
Yes.
as opposed to feminine love. So more shake it off, kid, and toughen up. That sort of message I got
Yes.
big time, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really was unable to navigate my own emotional life, and that, I think that when we don't know how to take care of ourselves, that builds up, right? It like if
Accumulates.
you have, right, it does, it accumulates, and then eventually, we're living beings that need to express our unique energy in a
Yeah.
creative way
And
that's unique to us, right? And
yeah,
that's functional, and so,
exactly.
right, and
And
so
I
I
think that could be tough because if you're growing up in a home that's very military, and you're not like that, it's like anything else. If you send a child to school and they don't fit into the system, some trouble can happen, and then it's hard to fit in. But at the end of the day, we all find what works for us, and it's up to us to unlearn what didn't work and then move
I
forward,
think
right?
so. And I always say, like, unfortunately, often I think that humans don't really tend to change until we're forced to, like until our
Mhm.
lives essentially force us to change.
Pain and suffering.
That's right.
Pain and suffering makes us do something because I guess this is not working. But I think it's great that you recognize off the gate that you were more sensitive, and growing up in a family that was a little bit more rigid, like that could have been quite problematic for you to navigate your way through that. So I think that's pretty good to observe that as a young
Wonderful.
girl.
Yeah, and it manifested in the.
Oh, I think maybe we lost you there. Let's try again. Okay, we've got it back. Yeah, Allie. Technology, that's the modern day, hey?
Indeed. All right. So where was I?
Talking
Yeah,
about how
so
you were sensitive.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, and so what I ended up developing a terrible eating disorder. I bulimic, and I have a lot, probably for about 14 years. It was pretty bad. And looking back on that, I really, I think it was a lot less about, for me anyway, it was a lot less about body image. I know there's a stigma that way, and a lot more about emotional control, and not
Control.
understanding how to manage and navigate and channel my big energy. I've always had a lot of big, I'm Italian and Jewish, so I have a lot of big, passionate, sensual sort of energy. And I think that if you don't have a way to channel it, that kind of energy, and structure it, or for anyone, then I think energy you can either create or destroy. And so if you're not creating, like, I think it's quite natural actually for it to sort of turn in on you, and
Yes.
lead to more destructive
Well,
tendencies.
the whole
And
creation is like that, isn't it? There's a creation and destruction happening all the time.
for sure, there's a definite cycle to it, and I think that's I think it's actually natural and beautiful. And while
Yes.
I would never recall that time in my life as being beautiful, certainly incredible things came of that for me, because if I hadn't suffered, if I hadn't been suffering at such a low level, I never would have changed my life in the way that I changed my life. I never would have been open enough, or seeking enough, in order to learned to practice Buddhism on the level that I did. Like, I mean, I went full on deep dive, completely immersed myself in mind body practice and in Buddhist practice. And I think if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been able to maximize my experience using that strategy as a springboard.
Yeah, and it's true what you said. When the pain and the suffering is so deep, we almost have to go deeper to find ourselves, because we are deeper than the pain and the suffering. Yeah. And I love how you said about how the personal challenge can help to be a springboard for your progress in the evolution of who we are. And so I know if there's anybody out there today listening, and if you're suffering with anything that's causing you a lot of pain and suffering, I know in the moment it feels like it's hopeless, but there are ways to deal with things, and you can reach out to people, and there are different strategies that you can use to get yourself out.
And to trust that the suffering itself is actually part of the design, like that it's not separate and distinct from what is in your future, like what like the kind of things that will open up in your future. You'll be inspired and you'll have the will and the drive to create. Like I have many times thought to myself, I mean, I have really struggled. Like I have stepped on a lot of bombs along the way, like trying to self-actualize and realize my dreams. Like I really went for it, and I went for it with both feet all the way, without a plan B, and without a whole lot of support career-wise, like in my professional life from my family, because my family is they're very structured. They come from very structured life. It's, my mom is a corporate lawyer and my dad's in the military. So that's a very one step in front of the other. And there's a path already sort of created for you in a profession like that. And teaching yoga, I think that they thought I was a nut for.
You've gone mad.
Right.
You've lost it, because there's no security in that, then there's no money in that, and there's no future in that.
It came up, actually, like that very thing. Like and
they're thinking, we have to look after her for the rest of our lives because she'll never be able to look after herself.
You know what? That's one thing. That's one thing that was clear to me that was not going to happen. Like my mother, both my parents. My mom was she was the baby girl of 4 kids. She had all brothers. So she grew up with men too. She grew up around a lot of masculine energy too. So, my parents have always been of the belief that, do whatever you want, do what makes you happy, but you're going to learn how to do it. Like if you want to teach yoga, kid, like go for it, but you're going to have to learn how to do it. Like we're not going to help you. It's kind of like sink or swim. And so
you need to go for it.
Yeah. And so I did, and I because I had the parents that I did, and because they held on to that philosophy pretty concretely throughout my life, I was able to learn the hard way, which was actually.
But that's the only way, isn't it? Because I don't think many people know this, but you can't fail.
You can't. Failure is not, doesn't exist. You're right.
Oh, no, you can't fail. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to get feedback. Right. Oh, that didn't work, so do it this way, or do it. But we become so afraid of failure that we hold on to everything else to try and make us not fail. But yet when you have, like you said, when there's no plan B, you go deeper and deeper into yourself, and you realize truly who you are.
Absolutely. And you have to fail. Like the most successful people on the planet are the ones who have failed the most.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
It's like a really important ingredient to success in anything.
And like I always try to show people that, like, your most famous actors and singers, and they have all, like, they spend half their life knocking on doors, people telling them no. But you know what? If you believe in yourself and if you love what you do, the universe is going to support you. Maybe not in the ways that you think, but you don't have to give up. You just continue,
and you will be brought to your knees. Like when you want to realize a new level of your own potential, your own human potential.
Yeah, because you have to break the limitations that you created. That's all in your mind, because all the limitations is what you created. How can the universe show you more when you're stuck in that? So it has to bring you to your knees. It has to create this destruction, complete destruction, so that you can be born new.
Kind of like
right?
the idea of the Big Bang, right?
Yes.
It's the idea of the Big Bang.
Yes.
It's that same kind
and
of
then
thing.
once you've done it,
explosion. And
yeah, and then once you've
crazy.
done it, you're not afraid anymore. It's like, okay, so that happened. So all the beliefs that we built up in our heads around how our life should be or should have been, when you let go of that, then you can actually see how your life is. And so we waste a lot of our time in like, oh, I regret, or I didn't do this. But actually you're wasting your life because you're not being present for what is rather than what should have been, could have been.
Only when you accept what is can you decide to change, right? Can you really decide to move in whatever direction that you want to go? And yeah.
So basically that was your springboard. I love it. So your springboard was pretty tough. And but you know what? It created this depth of a person that you are now, and you've created all the stuff that you have in helping people in healing, because when you've gone through it, only then can you actually have the compassion to help people to move through things that you've been through. So tell us a little bit about then, how did the movement as medicine come about? Because I know you've been teaching yoga a long time, and that's all to do with movement as well, but now you're actually doing this thing called movement as medicine.
Right. So I still teach yoga. And I teach yoga and functional movement is really where I have.
Can you explain a little bit about what is functional movement?
Sure. Well, I'll kind of back up to in 2018, I realized that I've had a lot of experience with using yoga for athletic progress and to polish my life and to alleviate emotional distress and to connect my mind to my body so I could cultivate a deeper, better, more healthy relationship with myself. But I didn't have a whole lot of, and knock on wood, but I didn't have a whole lot of experience using yoga to heal my physical body. And so I knew that there were gaps in my knowledge as a teacher. And out of the gate, when I became a yoga teacher and I started to do the actual craft, I knew in my heart and bones that this was what I was supposed to be doing. It was it was clear as day that this was the right thing for me, which is interesting, moving out to Los Angeles to pursue acting, because that's the direction of my heart's desire, right? And even though like it's interesting because we think that we know ourselves, but if you just start seeking and you start opening and you start expanding, you still get the desires of your heart, but it might look different than you previously thought because we don't know ourselves yet. Like you've got to tap outside the box to learn more about yourself, and so you can self-actualize in a way that's really unique to who you are. So you can bring your unique talents and gifts into the world. I think that's a big deal.
I think because the self, it's a tricky one. Who is the self? Who is the I? And for many of us, before we understand who we truly are, the I is often just the ego. So then the desires of the I, if it's in the ego, like it's not really truly who you are. So you really need to seek a little deeper to find your true self. And then from that place, you'll have a different vision of what it is that you truly want, because that changes as you discover the true self.
Yeah, I like that. Like I have a little bit of a different view of the ego. Like I think there's a very negative view of the ego, like in general, I think in like this in spiritual communities. And I always thought it was kind of useful. Like the ego is important, it gives us form and personality and personal culture. And so I always thought about how to cooperate best with that part of me. And so I think that using the strategy of the Buddhism, my practice, and also with my yoga practice, I was able to develop a personal culture that was really well suited to my being able to actualize my true self. Yeah, I think that's but so let's see, where was I? So, okay. So 2018 rolls around and I realized that I didn't have a whole lot of practice
for the physical body.
With the yoga therapy. Like I hadn't had to heal my physical body on in a way where I knew that other instructors had. And I think that there's a real beauty and there's real truth in teaching what you know. And so because I lacked that knowledge on the experiential level, I knew that I needed to go pursue teachers who knew all about this. And so I actually, I applied to a program, a master's degree program at a Buddhist university in California. The style of education is incredible. It's value creating education, which is like, it's a pretty new concept, newish, but it's they take people with goals, pre-existing goals in the world, and they put you with a mentor, and with the mentor, a faculty member, you create a curriculum designed that's based on your goals in the world, right? And I was obsessed with this. I wanted to go, like I knew that was it. And I ended up getting rejected from the program because they didn't have anybody to mentor me. And so this enabled me to like switch my thinking. I had talked to one of my personal heroes from my college days, this really cool lady. She's a slam poet and a public speaker. She's a professor in New York. Her name is Angela Cariotis. She's incredible lady. And I reached out to her and I said, Angela, like, I don't know where to go to school. What do I do? I don't know the next step. And she said, oh, sister, she said, you don't understand. You don't need them. They need you. And this led me to realizing that I knew what I needed to know. And so I designed my own curriculum, and I selected my own teachers, and I put that together, and I went to India, and I knew who I wanted to study with, and what I needed to learn.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was a really groundbreaking chapter of my life, very
creative,
like very much. And the people that I met out there and the experiences that I had, like, were really, it gives me chills. Like it was really reflective of the creative pulse, like taking the initiative. Like if you can't find this, if you're seeking for something, you can't find the solution, then create the solution yourself, right? My experiences out there really reflected that kind of magic in a way that was new and very sparkly. Like I learned so much about how this all works, is how it feels to me, looking back on that experience. So the last person that I studied with was this phenomenal teacher. I mean, I've never studied with anyone this advanced before, like ever. His name is Simon Borg Olivier. He's a physiotherapist and a research scientist and a yoga teacher of 40 years. He studied with Iyengar and Pattabhi Jois. Like he was one of the hippies who would go to India every year and study with Iyengar and so on for year after year. And so he had this huge library of experiential knowledge from the original gurus. And when he was about my age, he decided he didn't know anything. Decided he didn't know anything, and he went back to school to be a physiologist, which in Australia, that's like our physical therapist in the United States. And so his lectures were outstanding. He brought all of the clinical side from his experience and from his
university,
right, as a physiologist. But then he had all of this, like a bird's eye view, Taoist yoga, Chinese yoga, studying with Joyce and Iyengar. And so his lectures were just, I mean, it was like the wow factor was out of this world. And I learned so much from him. He kind of looks like, if you remember the movie Back to the Future.
Yes.
Doc. The
yes.
science.
Oh, he looks like Doc.
He looks like Doc, except little. Like he's like smaller and like.
And he was running this program from India, was he?
Yeah, we studied in Goa with Simon,
Mm.
and it was I mean, I remember, I mean, just to kind of, this like encapsulates my experience, because I, as much as I love teaching, I'm also very much a student, and I'm
Yes,
obsessed with,
goes hand in hand, right?
for sure. I'm obsessed with the
Yes.
learning process. I remember after a certain one lecture, I was so blown away by the amount I didn't know, that I actually, and I'm a pretty well respected teacher in the States, and I had just never been challenged in this way, like I
Yes.
was. And I started to kind of cry, and I
Yes.
approached Simon after a lecture. I was just so overwhelmed because I just didn't know so much, right? It was
Yeah.
overwhelming. And so I approached Simon after the lecture, and I said, I'm tearing up, I said, Simon, I just don't know how I'm going to be able to go back to the States and teach, because I'm realizing how much I don't know. And
Mm.
he's so sweet. He got out a piece of paper and he sat me down, and he said, he drew a circle on the paper, and he said, Allie, this, inside this circle, this is what you know. And he
Mm.
drew a circle on the outside of that circle, and he said, in this circle, this is what you don't know. And he
Mm.
drew a bigger circle on the outside of that, and he said, in this circle is infinite knowledge. He said, if you're in the space of I know, you can't cross over into
To the
infinite
infinite
knowledge.
knowledge. Yeah,
You have
that's
to be in
why.
the space of I don't know.
I don't
So
know.
it was
Yes.
this, it was the most beautiful, like, just take
Profound.
me under his wing. Yeah. And just like, it was totally okay to be um seeking and in a space of not knowing and
Yes.
absorbing. And I swear that education that I got from him, that training and education, and I also felt like he really saw me. I felt very seen by him.
Mm.
I felt believed in. And I think that that's a really important thing as a teacher, for a teacher to genuinely believe in the person in front of them. Like
Yes.
I try to also practice that, like I do, I believe in people, but I felt that
Yes.
that was happening there, and it was special, and there was a connection. And um it gave me the courage to come. I came back to the States, my career was starting to take off, I was doing workshops and seminars and this and that, like based on the everything that I had learned in India. I also went to I got a yoga therapy certification in Calcutta at the
Yeah.
Roche School,
Yeah.
and which is the lineage that
Yes. Yes. I
that you
know they do
went.
that. Yeah.
And yeah, and so the pandemic came, shut all the studios down. I was able to link up with a chiropractor, a couple of chiropractors that were just the most amazing, big-hearted, in bright light human beings ever. And I was yeah, so I spent my pandemic days with them, and they were sort of teaching me like a baby doctor. They would
Yes. Yes.
like mentor me in the medical, and also in business, which was so helpful to and appreciated, to be able to use that time. Everybody was sort of like isolated and indoors, and I got to be with these people that I wildly respected,
Yes.
and learn how to be an entrepreneur, learn how to work with patients in the medical community, so I could be a bridge builder from people who are accustomed to only seeking health and well-being from outside themselves, to taking complete responsibility for one's own life, by way of taking on a personal practice, a movement practice, using these proven functional movement techniques that I was able to glean from Simon.
Yeah.
And the stuff that I learned from Simon, he delivered it in a way, it's very scientific, right? And the
Yeah.
Western
Well,
mind,
yoga is very scientific.
for sure, but
Yeah.
the way that he delivers it is clinical, and it's
Ah,
digestible to a patient of a chiropractor, or of any doctor or therapist,
a
someone who, right.
physiotherapist. Yeah.
And so if I can explain the why, and I explain the technique, and I explain the why, then someone who's very hurt, someone who's quite hurt,
Yeah.
can have faith to practice the right thing because they understand in a cerebral way of why we're doing what we're doing.
Yes.
So I think that helps people who are really hurt or scared of movement practice or intimidated of going into a fitness studio. I think that helps with nervous system regulation, to be able to understand exactly why we're doing what we're doing, and we're using this posture in such a way to facilitate the opening of L5S1, to move blood around the part of the spine that gets compressed because we sit so much. Or we talk about tech neck and the head going in front of the thoracic spine, and then what this does on a structural level to the body, and then what it does on a muscular level. And then so through movement practice and through using these functional biomechanics, teaching people how the body works with itself in the best way to move energy and information most efficiently. And then people can engage in their own neuromuscular reprogramming. They can be the facilitators of their own healing, because they're the master commander of their central nervous system. They're the best one to do it. I had a PT, pelvic floor PT, who I talk about wildly respect. She's a huge heart, and she's so humble and beautiful human being. And she and I were, she was a private client, and she came out of a backward bend. She would have these epiphanies and she would share them, and I loved that because I'm a lush.
Yes, backward,
yeah. And she said, you know, I can't help people in the way that people can help themselves. Like, if you're using,
that's all of us.
Yeah, you're using your own brain and your own nervous system. That's the best you can do. And so to start it like that conversation, and then working with the doctors, it started to occur to me more and more that what we do in yoga it's preventative medicine, physical therapy. Like, if you teach the body to be a healing machine, if you teach the body to connect with self in a healthy way, to unkink the kinks and unrestrict the restrictions, to move energy and information the most efficiently, then you can correct trauma. You can correct misalignment based on activities of daily life that aren't the best for your neck or shoulders and this and that, and understanding the why, I think is really important for people. Like, why are we doing what we're doing and what's actually happening? And I think that motivates people to practice it.
Yeah, because especially in the West, we want to know with the logic mind, because for 5,000 years now, yogis knew this. And, people have been practicing yoga for thousands of years. And it's just lately, I would say in the last, 50 years, probably in the West, yoga has become so popular. And unfortunately, there's a lot of, I would call it bastardization of yoga, because it's become more fitness. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong if you want to do fitness, but it's not really yoga, because yoga has therapeutic aspect.
Yeah, it can be that, exactly. But it's also so much more, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, it's really interesting what we've done with yoga. And I love what you're saying, because a lot of people, unfortunately, this is really true, that people don't understand that they know what's best. Their body knows what's best, but they never even ask their body. It's so easy for us to just go to the doctor, get a prescription. If we don't feel well, take a pill. If I don't do this, take a pill. And yet, like what you just described now, is like, if you use the body, if you move the body in the right ways, it can act as preventative, it can act as medicine. And I know that personally from my 25 plus years of yoga practice. It's like in my life, I can tell you hands down, it is the best thing I have ever done in my entire life. The best thing. It's my yoga practice. If I'm happy, if I'm not happy, if something is going well, if it's not going well, if my mind is very busy, if it's not busy, it doesn't matter what it is. When I step into my mat, my body knows how to heal itself. Right. My body knows how to come back to connection to self.
I think that what's unique about you and what you just said is, it's really, and how that's different from the choices that other people make who get into yoga. It's really easy to start. It's easy to start a practice. It's difficult to
to
continue.
maintain.
It's difficult to continue, but the
True.
real benefit lies in continue that consistent practice.
100%.
Yeah.
But you know where sometimes people lose, I think, sight is because we're looking for an outcome.
Right.
We don't practice for an outcome.
Right.
You just come to your mat and see what unfolds.
Well, I think goal setting is important. I have a real appreciation for goal setting, even in practice, because actual proof is really important. If you can tell someone, oh, you have back pain, you can cure your back pain with yoga. You make that a goal, and then the back pain comes. Maybe it gets a little, more intense, like as you begin to practice and you keep going. Well, there's a really important process happening there. Like healing is not, it's not an easy thing all the time. Like it's not, like roses and daffodils, like it's hard. And so I think that people tend to get gun shy as they, of continuing when doubt comes up or when more pain comes up. But I think that understanding that you can use this stuff to actualize your goals. Like you can be really specific with your own life. You have to let go of the outcome. Like I think
you can have the goals, but you have to let go of the outcomes, because if you don't let go of the outcome, then unfortunately you'll be very disappointed. And because expectation reduces joy. But if you just because if you're already in pain and suffering and you've tried everything else, like there's nothing to lose. So it's like, okay, let me try this. But you know what happened? Like you just said actually something very important about how people, they start something and then if challenges come up, then we stop. And that's exactly why we need to continue with the practice.
Right.
The practice has to, the biggest thing is that your mind is going to make up so many stories of why you couldn't make it. I have a headache. Oh, my child's whatever, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter what the story is. It's a story. And then one day when you get to like 80 years old, 90 years old, and you can't move anymore and you're all hunched over, you won't even remember why you didn't have time to go to yoga.
Right.
It would be so insignificant.
Right.
So the key is here. And I remember it when I first started teaching yoga. It's like one of the most important things I used to tell my students all the time. Even if your mind tells you not to come, just come to the room. I've used it my own self. Like when there were days when I didn't feel like going to the room, I'm like, oh, I know I don't feel like it, but I should. And here's the key. I'll leave you guys with this. If you can, you must.
I remember that one.
Right? If you can, you must. I always remember that in the back of my head. It's like on the days when I'm like, if you can, you must get up. And you're never going to regret it when you finish that yoga class. And every day yoga classes. This morning I did my practice. Yesterday morning I did my practice, and it was amazing. I went so deep and everything was so effortless. And this morning, guess what? Nothing happened. I was like, oh, okay. But then I was like, well, that's what my body is like today. It has less depth. I couldn't go as deep, although my rabbit pose was amazing. That's the only pose that I did deeper in than yesterday. But all my postures were just like, but it was fine. My Savasana was amazing because I actually took the time and I didn't lose. I was better yesterday. Who cares about what you did yesterday? You just have to be in the now. What's my body doing now? Today, my body is saying, it's not so open and so flexible. And maybe that has to do with my sleep, my food, I don't know, it could be a whole combination of things, but there's no judgment for that.
Well, and it's also part of the design, right? Like the creative cycle, like if it's good every day, then you're not fusing your life with the creative process, because it's like, unless it feels bad sometimes, like I would argue that unless it feels bad sometimes, like winter always turns to spring, like there's sun and moon, like there's all of these, like that's.
It's so valuable what you're saying, Allie. It's so valuable what you're saying about we have to honor, when it doesn't go so well too. We can't it's
part of it. It's
part of the. I love how you say it's part of the design. But our mind has a tendency to be addicted to only the good stuff. we see it all over in our day-to-day life too. People on social media, they only want to show the good stuff. Nobody really wants to say. And it's funny because people will show things on social media and you're like, oh, okay. But then the next day they are going to announce some crisis. It's just like, we don't have to pretend that life is always good every day, that my yoga practice is great every day. It's like, no, there's ups and downs and everything. Like you said, winter turns to spring and spring turns to summer and summer turns to fall.
Yeah,
and so we're part of that.
Of success, like all of it, right?
Yes.
It's all part of it. It's so like it. And I think if you can realize that, if you can recognize that, and if you can practice, make it a habit of recognizing that when it's happening, then everything can be joyful. Like it may be not happy-go-lucky every day, but there's sort of like an undercurrent of joy because you understand.
And you value.
Yes.
You value that it's all part of it. Like it's right. And also I think once you go through the the not so good experiences of your day-to-day life, then I think what happens to us is that we appreciate just being, instead of always having the addiction to what I like and how I like it. Because that's very it's very like, not childlike, but childish. Is that you always want to have it the way you like it, but life is not like that. So the mind and the thinking and the thoughts are always pulling us towards those things that we like and pushing against the things that we don't like. And if you can find the balance to be okay when something happens that you like, and to be okay when something is occurring that you don't like, because you are the one that's observing all of it.
Yeah, the Japanese women in my Buddhist group, they used to, when I would have a struggle, where I was like, something bad would happen, quote unquote, bad would happen. They would always say, congratulations, helping myself to see the cycle, to see the process in it.
Oh my God, I love that.
I know, right?
I absolutely love that.
You can start to appreciate when the bad things happen. What's going to happen?
Oh my God! That's so great. I don't say congratulations to myself, but maybe I will use that too. What I usually do is when something happens that I don't like, or that's supposed to be bad, quote unquote bad, then I was like, ooh, what does this come to teach me about myself? Ooh,
that's nice.
What is it in me? Yeah, what is it in me that I can learn from this, right? But I never feel like it's bigger than me, because nothing's bigger than you.
I can see that in your life force. You have a very, very
but that's the practice, right? That's what your practice takes you to. The path to self-realization will take you to understand that there's nothing bigger than you. And then even the things you don't like that happens to you, what is it coming to teach you? Because there's a gift in it. That's how I look at it. But I will add congratulations too now. I used to just add it as a gift. But I absolutely love that. Congratulations. I love it. It just turns the whole thing around, right?
Totally.
I love it. And it's so useful. My goodness, Allie, I'm so grateful that you took the time to talk to us a little bit about how important movement is, movement as medicine, and just your little journey and what you've discovered. And it's so huge what you've discovered and what you're sharing with the world. And I thank you so much for sharing it with our listeners. And I'm going to put all Allie's information in the podcast below, so you can reach out to her if you want to know more. And like, she has a wealth of information, as you know, as you've heard a little bit there. So yeah, reach out to her or reach out to me if you want to know anything else. But I will suggest to people, if you are in a place where you are struggling and you are suffering, for me personally, there's no better thing than to create a discipline yoga practice, meditation practice, because even though it seems very simple, like a daily routine of meditation and yoga, it's very simple, but the effect on your life will be profound.
I agree with
Truly.
that.
Yes. So thank you so much, Allie. Sending you all my love. I'm so grateful you took the time to talk with us. And I'm so happy to see you and to spend some time with you after so many years. We haven't connected, we see each other in this, the IT world. the social media world. But I'm so happy to have made this time to talk with you and to celebrate everything. And I just love, one thing that resonates with me so much is what Allie said about how it's the design. It's part of the design. So whatever it is that you're going through in your life, even if it's hard, it's part of the design. So, celebrate it and congratulate yourself on, like whatever this is trying to teach you. Be happy that life is teaching you, and there's always going to be a way out for you. That's just how it is, because nothing that comes to your life is ever going to overtake you. There is nothing that's greater than you. So whatever obstacle you have, I'm going to quote, this is Allie's word. She says, personal challenge can be a springboard for progress. And she says, and that progress is going to help you with your human revolution. So movement is medicine. Allie, thank you so much. We look forward to maybe talking to you again in another episode of the Deb Talks.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sweetheart. Have a good one.
All right, you too.